Morning, Michael. How you doing?
Fantastic. How are you, Ryan?
Doing good. Looking forward to this show. We got introduced to a mutual friend. I think it was Lucas, wasn't it? From Bank of the West.
Oh yeah, it's always a banker.
Yeah, right. They're always out hustling. And so what I wanted, what we're going to be doing here is a couple part series because you have an awesome story about how you grew the business, and then you also have a very interesting exit story that we'll be covering in the second round. But as you and I were talking, I think what you did in the services businesses to actually scale is unbelievably interesting because I think you and I have both been thinking peer groups and these the round tables, and everybody is always wondering, how do I grow? And I just did a recent episode with a gentleman that was really diving into sales, and I think it's really interesting because I think there's so many people, especially in today's world with digital marketing and all the different ways that entrepreneurs want to silver bullet to grow. And I think your story is going to be fun because a lot of people are going to learn a lot. So maybe give everybody a little bit of background of, how did you become an entrepreneur? How did you jump into it? Because your story about and how you jumped into it is interesting as well. And then we can hit the ground running.
Well, don't oversell with the word interesting, but I'll do what I can. So I think from an early age, I knew I wanted to be in business. I didn't quite know exactly what that meant. And I just, I was a guy buying baseball cards and, reselling them to friends and, bringing in packs because I could go to the store and, I had a side hustle before there was a side hustle, I guess. And I just, from thinking about starting out the screen printing company in ninth grade to kind of exploring it more in college, I just knew that I wanted to go out and build stuff. And so where that took me, did I tell you about Jimmy John's?
I don't know if you did actually. Huh?
Okay. So every time we talk, we'll peel back more of the onion. Just assume that I'm a pathological liar. So in college, I spent a summer working in Boston, and I worked at a sandwich shop, kind of in a cool area of Boston, while I had a non-paying internship at Tufts University, which was the reason I was in Boston. And working at that sandwich shop, I realized, boy, I really love Jimmy John's. I'm kind of a sandwich junkie, and I thought I could open up a Jimmy John's in Boston. So pick the city with top 5 highest rent in one of the dumbest industries to execute a plan on with the highest failure rate. And of course, it's a great idea. So I ran toward that for a handful of years. A buddy of mine was a partner. I did air quotes. I'm realizing we're just doing audio, but Ryan got to see my air quotes.
I got it.
Sexy air quotes. So I ran toward it, and I kind of lucked out because contemporaneous with me realizing that it was a horrible idea, that I was underfunded and destined for failure, Jimmy John's changed their financing requirements. They wanted me to fully collateralize 8 stores before opening the first, because they had run into a guy, I think in Austin, Texas, who he opened 1 store and he couldn't open the second because, it's no bank loan. So we came up a couple $1 million short. But what I realized was, and it's fun telling a story where it's going to be edited out of the podcast because it's boring. But the fun part was, I realized that I was ill-equipped to open Jimmy John's because, I was a 20-year-old and undercapitalized, but I got stuck on the question, what if my tomatoes don't show up? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if I probably have a contract to buy a certain type of tomato from a certain vendor, and I probably have a contract saying I need to use a certain type of tomato with an approved vendor. If they don't show up, am I breaking my franchise agreement? Am I breaking my distribution agreement with the vendor? How do I put tomatoes on my damn sandwich? So the tomato question stumped me, which led me to law school. I looked at, do I get a JD or an MBA or a JD MBA and just be in school forever? Decided on a JD as an alternative to an MBA, not to practice law because that would be horrible. But I come from a family of attorneys. They're the good type. They work on fun stuff rather than chasing an ambulance and suing people. My dad was in M&A for years, bought and sold cool things. My brother closest in age is the tax attorney, not income tax, but international REITs and, dealing with, Abu Dhabi and like crazy. He's the smart one. And then the other brother does real estate and general practice stuff. So I kind of knew, okay, these are smart guys doing cool things and they're really in tune with the business community. Maybe I could get that mojo and just apply it for good rather than evil. So that led me to law school. And I kind of had a sense of, I thought I wanted to build something. I thought I wanted to do a startup, not entirely knowing what a pain in the butt that was. And in writing a handful of business plans and destroying a handful of business plans, I'll note one of the more successful things that we never did was Bite Squad. We called it bringmesomecandydammit.com. It was delivery of anything, anywhere, anytime. But it was pre-drone, so it was not viable. But, so realized, okay, to heck with startups. Let's get into M&A. Let's start in private equity, even though I probably didn't have the verbiage or the full-on sense of what that was going to look or feel like. But had a partner, and his brother was a carpet cleaner. And he had gone hunting with a guy in real estate who they found out a couple of weeks later that he was looking to buy a carpet cleaning company. So he looked up my friend's brother and said, hey, can you help me vet this company? They got this cool water technology. I want to see if it's the real deal. There's a company called ZeroRez, cleaning very few carpets in Minnesota. They had 3 trucks, 2 employees, and maybe doing about $20,000, $25,000 a month. So they were losing just a little bit of money, but the business model was completely upside down. So they send the carpet cleaner, not the business guy, out to vet the opportunity. He says, oh, it's the best thing ever. Great business model. Everything.
Who cares about money, right?
Who cares about money? And, all these trucks are sturdy and, piece of shit. So, so he says, well, the real estate guy says to the carpet guy, well, do you want to run this thing? I'm going to buy it. And do you know anybody who'd want to invest or help operate or whatever? And he said, well, my brother and his idiot friend, me, are looking to, buy something. Maybe we'll bring it in. And, so we talked about it, and over many a happy hour, decided we were going to take over the world in the carpet cleaning industry. So
one carpet at a time.
One carpet at a time, baby. So success for us was going to be, let's get to 5 trucks. We'll get 10 or 15 employees. And I wanted to operate for maybe 3 years, because if I'm going to go out and do turnarounds and buy distressed assets, I probably should figure out how to run a business first, right? Add some credibility and authenticity when I say, oh, you should go left instead of right, because I've done it. So going into my last year of law school, we bought the company. We had those 2 employees, the 3 trucks, and inherited a radio budget. They were buying local radio for maybe $3,000 a month on one station.
One sec, Michael. I'm curious because I want to definitely go into the radio stuff, but I'm curious, so it was you, the real estate partner, and then so what was the actual partnership structure set up?
Sure. So there were 4 of us. The carpet cleaner, Ryan, you're in good company, was a sweat equity partner. He was going to be the general manager. His brother, who I was trying to start a business with, Sean, was a sweat equity partner. I came in as a capital partner, as well as getting a little bit of sweat equity. And I took a discount on my cash day one because I didn't have to personally guarantee anything. Jim, the guy who found the opportunity and kind of spurred the investment, the real estate guy, he had a development company. So he's doing big housing projects. He had a flipping company, he had a rehab company, and a residential real estate company, and a title company. So he was in really deep in real estate in 2006. We'll put a asterisk by that one because things changed a little bit. But and note that my equity took a discount because I didn't personally guarantee anything in 2006. So story gets fun. Don't worry.
Yeah. We'll be getting to that too. Well, and I'm curious, what did you pay for a business that was $25,000 a month in revenue and losing money?
Oh, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, so here was the concept. We've got this. It's a franchise, right? So you think of a franchise, you think of Subway. They're going to tell you how much meat to put on the sandwich. They're going to tell you how much, where to put your location.
Where to buy your tomatoes.
Package marketing. Where to buy your damn tomatoes, right? They're going to give you a business in a box because in theory, they've made a lot of sandwiches, right? They've done this before. So these guys that started ZeroRez, they were very well-intentioned, very upstanding citizens, I think. And they had this water company that made had this water technology, these machines that took water and salt and electricity and broke it down into component parts, repackage it as NaCl and H2O with electricity. So electricity zaps the molecules. And scientists listening, please excuse this explanation, but this is
how many scientists are followers and listeners of the show.
Yeah. I'm going to lie my pants off and not get caught. So, so you take this NaCl and H2O, you repackage it because you've zapped it with electricity, and you get two products. You get hypochlorous acid and sodium hydroxide. Hypochlorous acid, and that's all that comes out of this machine. Two streams of water. One is like organic bleach, the other is like organic soap. So one is low pH, one's high pH. Good at killing stuff, good at cleaning stuff. They were trying to figure out what verticals can we sell this water into, and one of them had property management experience and said, well, I bet you it cleans the heck out of carpet. So they started a carpet cleaning franchise.
I never knew the background of that.
It's pretty sexy. So we come in and we're valuing. You can't value the revenue stream because it's all blue sky at that point. They're not doing anything that's noteworthy. So we value the assets, and we worked to secure most of Minnesota and Western Wisconsin. So we bought territory to make it exclusive that we didn't need it to be exclusive, which was dumb, awesome mistake number one. Dumb because we paid way too much up front. Awesome because once we blew up, we didn't have to renegotiate to carve out our turf. Mm-hmm. And two, we bought these massive, silly trucks that the industry was cleaning with probably, $40,000 trucks. We had $140,000 trucks, $130,000 trucks. And the concept, it's all because of the water, because we had to buy a bigger truck because we had to carry more water because they use this water. I said it's because of the water, because of the cleaning wand, the tool that spritzes down and sucks up the water. One of the pet projects of one of the founders was he wanted to use this special technology that would create like a tornado effect. So as the jets, this is also going to be edited out of your awesome podcast, but the jets, instead of spraying water outside of the vacuum chamber, the jets were inside the vacuum chamber. So every ounce of water going down was pulled back up. So you had to spray it down harder, right? You had more pounds per square inch of pressure. So typical carpet cleaners use very little water because they would spray down at maybe 150, 200 PSI. We're spraying down at 600 plus PSI, like 3-4 times the rate, because there's resistance, there's vacuum flow against the water. So we had to bring 400 gallons of water with us everywhere. So we needed these massive trucks. These trucks, like literally, we're out cleaning a club in the middle of the night. The part of the truck just fell in the alley. These trucks would catch on fire. I remember my partner Sean's wife had a baby, and I was on the phone with Bachman's, and I hung up on the lady because the truck's parked outside of a window I was sitting by, and flames are just shooting out the top.
Oh my God.
And I walk out, and like 4 employees and one of the owners is standing out there. And I said, guys, fix it. No, you just got to let it burn.
We got insurance, right?
So yes, we paid, probably 130% of revenue for the thing. Yeah. We went back, another brilliant move. We went back to the owner, the prior owner who sold it to us, because he had a note on part of the purchase price, because the seller, when we called him out on some misrepresentations, he fessed up to it and was like, okay, I'm not going to fight you. Yep, I lied. So, because we found out pretty quick what a turd it was that we had bought.
Burning vans and
I mean, it's just painful. So we go back to him and we said, listen, we're not going to pay you part of this note. He said, okay. And we said, and the rest of it, we're going to pay you via a royalty. And he said, okay. And what that did was it freed up cash flow day one, but it increased the payment down the road because instead of paying him a fixed fee, we paid him a 2% royalty for a couple of years. And when he sold us a company doing 25,000 a month when we're doing 250,000 a month. We did not get the better end of that deal.
Right.
But it wasn't the dumbest thing we did. We spent money on dumber.
I was going to say, well, so let's get into how you got to those revenue numbers, and we can go back to the radio, because I think what you guys did with the radio in the time and the leverage that you had and what you pulled off is amazing.
Well, thank you. It required that the world collapse. When implementing this strategy, be sure to do it right after all liquidity in the market dries up because of a massive housing crisis. So,
plan on that. Write your business plan right around that, right?
Yeah. Just wait for it. So what happened was, we inherited this radio platform, buying talk radio station that wasn't really producing results. The average job acquisition was probably, the cost was, close to $200. So we had to have a $400, $500 job average. So we're out doing, very expensive carpet cleaning for very few people to facilitate not firing a broken radio platform that we were on. So, what happened was we got some good press. We had pushed the, I'm sorry, my wife is texting. Can you still hear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad she can make it in the podcast. Heidi says hi. So I had pushed for about a year to get a PR piece put into the Star Tribune, the Minneapolis's big newspaper, and finally broke him down. A business writer named Dick Youngblood, who was kind of a heritage, he was the business section for many years, and he did a piece on us that published September 11th, 2008. We bought the company September 18th, 2006. So we're 2 years in. I spent about a year trying to get the press out there, and it was front page below the fold of the business section. And I don't know if it was because it was September 11th or what happened, but we blew up. We had just moved a week prior, and so our office wasn't really set up. And we had one computer terminal that you could actually schedule a job on. It wasn't web-based. It was, we had software on that desktop, and the phone started ringing. And I was like, oh, cool. It's 6:30 in the morning. And, this article came out. Maybe we got some good mojo. Well, 7 lines were lit up for probably 7 weeks straight, 7 days a week.
So crazy for one piece of newspaper. Like, it's just ridiculous.
One piece of press. So I thought the scope of the opportunity in our market was going to be, we could run a couple of trucks and be cute. The biggest player was doing $4.5 million. It was Stanley Steamer. We've all heard their commercials. They've got a jingle and all that fancy stuff. And we're just this little carpet cleaning company, but we're, it's green before green was really, a viable thing. Like, there were plenty of green products out, but the assumption was you had to sacrifice quality to get green. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't lead with green. We said, oh, by the way, we're green, but we've got badass carpet cleaning that actually works. And people piled on. People just went crazy. So our business tripled overnight because all of a sudden, we were recognizable. We had a little bit of press.
What do you do with your vehicles? I mean, did you have like 7 more $140,000 burning vehicles, or what was the?
Well, at this point, the housing crisis had not happened. This is September. The markets were skittish, but what was it? Mid-October, early October, Lehman fails and the world collapses. So fast forward a couple of weeks and the world falls apart. We're still getting all these calls. We've got 5 vehicles and there's no credit anywhere. I mean, nobody's going to lend anybody any money. Meanwhile, my partner had the housing company, the real estate brokerage, the title company. He was joining several liability on $22 million in property development. It was 70% pre-sold and went down to 0% pre-sold because everyone backed out because nobody could qualify for a mortgage 3 weeks after our company starts blowing up. So, so we realize, okay, Jim's going to be in some doo-doo because his world is collapsing. Our world's blowing up. but what are we going to do? How are we going to keep the momentum? And we finally had some money in the bank, and we said, well, look around the world. This is probably October or November or December of '08. And we realized, well, all these other companies are pulling out of their radio spends because I'm staying in touch with the radio stations. And what if we leverage that? And so we got all the radio stations. I mean, Frito-Lay is backing out, and Coca-Cola is backing out. Chevy's not buying their ads. Northwestern Mutual. I mean, we sat all these radio sellers down and said, listen, we know you've got inventory you could drive a truck through. We're an awesome carpet cleaning company who's probably not able to buy any of your awesome radio. However, if you gave us a job, we could pay for it. And they said, what do you mean? I said, well, the unsold seat flies with the airplane. Don't just not run an ad, or don't just give it to, Belzer Ford, because they've always gotten freebies from you and always been a good customer. Build us into a good customer. We'll just backdoor it. We'll pay after it worked. And they said, screw you. They going all throughout the room. Everybody told us where we could shove it. It's Seth, the biggest station in town. And they said, tell us more. And they said no, but they said we could do a hybrid of that. We do part pay for performance and part really, 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 really like a third of our normal rate for the best mini-air radio in town. We had never bought something for hundreds of dollars on the radio. I was used to buying like $40 spots on the crappy talk station. We signed up to buy $600 spots that were supposed to be close to $2,000 spots. And we came up with a philosophy working with this joker out of Utah, who was a pathological liar. He was our media buyer, but helped us put this platform together where, okay, we're going to buy this really expensive radio. We're going to cut our price by 30%, and we're going to do some razzle dazzle. And so I wrote really bad ads that the talent read really poorly. And originally we hadn't cut our price. We were 3 rooms for $189. Then we realized, wait a minute, let's try to just get in the door and sell as cheap as we can. We'll do a loss leader on the first 3 rooms, $129, $119. And I'll be the talent. So we did bookends where the radio talent, Terry Train on KQRS, said, hey, I'm here with my good friend Michael from ZeroRez Carpet Cleaning. What's going on? I'd tell a goofy carpet anecdote for 40 seconds, and then she'd wrap it up with some jazz hands pricing and razzle dazzle, and give a call today for the great November special or whatever season it was. And so we could do probably 450 jobs per month across the company. We launched the platform on KQ when everyone else told us to buzz off on early February of '09. And it was like 10 below, and we were begging them to cancel the ads because it was $600 a minute. And they said, nope, this is, you signed in ink and blood in, with your firstborn child, you shall not cancel, you are screwed. And so nothing happened. No calls, no nothing. And then we made the changes where we lowered the price by 30%. I came on as the talent, and 3 weeks later, the month that followed, we booked about 400 jobs just on that radio station.
Holy cow.
And these are at the time, $350 jobs. So holy shit, we can't execute on any of this capacity. I mean, demand way outpaced supply. So we go, all right, we're now running 7 days a week, which we had never done. We're running 5 or 6 jobs per truck instead of 3. And let's talk about buying some vehicles. We're not buying the trucks that break down and catch on fire. We had been talking with a goofball, Steve Polis, with Hydromaster, and we basically worked out that he was just going to lie to his boss. He was engineering a truck for us because we've got this magic water. We couldn't just use an off-the-shelf truck because our water eats metal. Small little problem, right? So he's engineering one that's stainless steel. So he's making stainless steel pumps and parts and nuts and bolts and whatever. And he went to his boss and they said, so they're going to buy 20 of them, right? Said, absolutely. we had committed to buy one, but you can't do R&D and re-engineer a vehicle
and make money on
for
one.
Yeah, I mean, they would have lost $2 million. So he said, oh, they'll definitely buy 20. We bought one, and we still didn't really have full-on permission from the franchisor to execute the model. But they said, we'll talk about it. They didn't believe the laws of physics. Small little problem. So we're trying to teach them physics while getting approval, permission to buy equipment where the manufacturer's rep had lied to the manufacturer. So it's this great shell game of moving the parts along. Meanwhile, my partner had just filed for bankruptcy. So they shut down the credit card, freeze the bank accounts. So we don't have a bank to pay for any of this. And the phones are blowing up. We've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars booked on our schedule that, we could clean if we had trucks that we could buy if we had a bank account.
Oh my God. So
what question to ask next, right?
Right. Curious on what was the agreement with the radio show? So like how much, for the listeners that are probably thinking, in the world of digital marketing these days, you can track all that stuff, give affiliate commission. So one is, how did you determine those 400 calls came from the radio show? And then what was the actual spiff agreement, or how did that all work?
So the radio platform required a level of visibility. So there's hundreds of softwares out there that'll do it now, but we had one of the first, to my knowledge, web-based tracking platforms. It was all user-driven, and in the office, Sally would take down notes and say, how'd you hear about us? And they'd say, oh, we heard you on an ABC station. Great. So they would put it into the system, but you literally couldn't schedule a job without answering the question, how'd you hear about us? Uh-huh. And the radio reps would have the ability to log into the software from their office and see all the results from all the stations. So that visibility was huge. We told them, we fibbed just a little bit. We said the most we could ever possibly pay to acquire a customer is $50. And so we paid the first, $10,000 or whatever it was that was agreed upon with the radio station to get on air. And then after $50 at a time that had been gobbled up, we'd pay them another $50. Eventually, the goal was to get rid of that post-pay model and just say, we've seen what normalized results look like. And now we'll just pay you that up front. Yep. And if we do better, great. If we do worse, it's our problem. Yep. But the real secret to success, I think, in our business was, one, we came up with an awesome service model. We killed them with kindness. We followed raving fans philosophy and just gave big sloppy kisses and hugs to everybody with the intention of trying to not buy their love next time. They're in the community. We don't need to reacquire them. We can just re-engage them through really cheap media, emails, postcards, etc. Number two, we came up with a service delivery model through the equipment that didn't catch on fire or cause us massive pain. We realized in 2007 that per job, it cost us $89 just to get our truck to the job. So
how'd you figure that
out? We just added up all the blown tires, all the mechanics fees, all the towing expenses, all the fuel, and that didn't even insure fixed costs like insurance. But on a per job basis, we were so out of line that it cost us $89 to get the truck there.
Jeez.
And so we took that to the franchisor and said, listen, we typically it should be in the 30s. We need different equipment. And even though they didn't really understand the physics of it, we worked on them to help them understand why you didn't get a better cleaning product with their truck, or why it didn't matter as much that it was a bigger, badder truck that they were selling. And the third thing that changed our business was two parts. One was how we bought media and how we packaged it and messaged it. And two, I really think was how we looked at client acquisition. So a typical business is saying, well, I know half my marketing doesn't work. I just don't know which half. And we said, that's not going to fly. We need to track the shit out of it because I'm going to be 100 years old trying to figure this thing out. That's not going to work for me. So we were impatient. So we became diligent. And then number two, we started to look at acquisition cost as the real driver. And I think a lot of businesses are doing that now that AdWords and Bing and online platforms are as prevalent as they were. But in '09, it was more about impressions and how you felt about it than can I really get analytic. And we said, listen, cost of goods sold is, call it 40%. It came down as we scaled, but 40% to do the job. If we spend 50% to acquire the job, we've got 10% left behind. So 50% to acquire the job, that means if I spend $1, I got to get 2 back. So my acquisition cost or my ROI is 2 to 1. Mm-hmm. So spend $10,000, I need to get $20,000 back for a program to not suck. And we changed the metric from how efficient can I get at buying media to how can I buy as much media as possible without losing money. So rather than trying to make money on a particular radio station, I said, how do I scale it? If I'm getting a 4 to 1 ROI, great. What happens if I spend 20% more? I don't care if the ROI is 4 to 1, as long as it's above 2 to 1. Mm-hmm. Because today I'm in scaling mode with the philosophy, let's go out and clean as many houses as we can, put those people on an island, dig a moat around them, put some alligators in it, kill them with kindness, and hope they repeat. We're buying trucks like crazy because we wrote an RFP to a bunch of banks. A couple came back. One said, "Okay, we're gonna partner with you."
What year was this?
This is right as the shit's happening. This is '09.
Okay.
And my business partner is filing for bankruptcy. Bank accounts are frozen, credit lines frozen, credit cards cut up. And we said, but look at our bookings. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing in. If we could cater to more of these customers, we'd be able to buy the trucks in cash. And they said, we'll let you buy a truck. Well, we bought 5 that year in '09, and then we bought 9 or 10 a year for years on down the road.
So that the manufacturer's rep was he held true to his quote unquote word, right?
Yeah. Not necessarily on purpose, but he sold maybe hundreds and hundreds of these things to ZeroRez now. So our job at that point was, let's scale this thing. We've got the media model, we've got the service model, and we've got the delivery model. But then we realized, well, crap, we don't actually know if these customers like us. They paid us, but is that evil scheme of making them love us, putting them in the moat or on the island, mm-hmm. digging the moat, putting the alligators in and getting them to call us again? We don't know if that's going to happen because they're not engaging a carpet cleaner quarterly. Typically it's every couple of years. So we said, well, crap, we need to actually find out if this thing's going to work. Otherwise we got to shut her down because we're taking on millions of dollars of debt buying these $75,000 pieces of equipment and all this training and all this crap. So we started, we found a company called Listen 360. They were called Sistino at the time, and they did a net promoter score survey.
Oh, cool.
So I'm sure most people know, but those who don't, it's one question on a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to refer me to your friends, family, colleagues, whatever? Do you like us? Are you willing to go out on a limb for us? And if you get a 9 or a 10, they're a promoter. They're actively out. Yep, I'm all over it. I'm going to tell everybody. 7 or 8, okay, they're passive. They don't hate you. They don't love you. It's an opportunity.
Equation, right?
Yep. I'm not going to say I got nothing bad to say, but I'm not inspired. And then if it's a 0 through 6, it's, oh crap, these people actually have they weren't thrilled or they were actively unhappy. And the net promoter score takes the percentage of promoters, 9s and 10s, minus the percentage of detractors, 7s and 8s. And in the service business, having a 40 or 50% net promoter score is deemed, average or maybe even good. Before we started managing it, when we first implemented, we were in the low 70s. We worked our way up into the 80s, and it was Minnesota nice. We're killing them with kindness. We're out actively trying to get people to like us.
Were you then tracking, Michael, how these people, with that, I don't know if you're still doing the intake form of how often these people were repeat buyers and what the lifetime value of a customer was?
Yep. And so the lifetime value was kind of tricky. We had to fudge it a little bit, but repeat customers spent more. Customers who the Listen 360 platform tracked all this stuff. Customer satisfaction based on what they bought overall and what they were sold on site, what they were sold over the phone. And we started to get analytic with it and realize that, people who had a better experience bought more, and people who bought more typically had a better experience. And I don't know which way it went, but people who said, okay, I'm going to turn and burn, I'm just going to clean and leave. Those customers didn't see the razzle dazzle. They paid less, but they got less value. They felt less good about it. So we started to realize customers really don't remember what you did for them. It's how they felt after you did it that sticks with them. And so we became very, service focused, bring in the groceries if Mrs. Johnson's emptying the car, play with the dog, wipe down the baseboard, show them you're sweating. It became less about the steak and more about the sizzle.
How did you, so with the fact that you're scaling, you figured out the media platform, you got the trucks, and how about today's environment's a little bit different than 10 years ago, but like the people and the infrastructure systems, like what did you do to like not just be able to deliver this, but then also build the infrastructure to be able to handle it for the people and the processes?
So you knew that I was glossing over the real shit show, right? You're good at this. I know your wily ways, Ryan. So it was a hot mess because you remember the millions of people who became unemployed, and the world changed in 2008. So we're not the only people in town, but we're hiring like crazy. And we initially made the mistake of saying, okay, let's hire the best resume for someone who would go out and do a professional white collar gig. Right?
You could probably go to every single real estate brokerage and
I had mortgage brokers. Yeah, I had mortgage brokers. I had a university professor. I had 6-figure consultants working on my carpet trucks, and I thought, I can relate to these people. They're all awesome. Well, the job of cleaning carpets, I'm not going to say it sucks, but it takes a very particular set of motivations and skills to thrive at it because it's really hard.
I was just going to say, you got a guy or gal that's been used to making 6 figures. I can't imagine they're taking Mrs. Jones's groceries in and being really super happy about it.
No, we were the plan for them to not get evicted. We were not part of their career trajectory. Now our top guy, I think he's part robot, but he's made 6 figures cleaning carpet. And we've had plenty of guys in the 60s and 70s, thousands, cleaning carpet. But those are people who fit in the box. So we started to realize, hire people, clearly define what the box looks like. What is the job? What are the benefits? What are the pain points? Clearly define it. And then don't sell people on getting in the box. Bring on people who thrive in that box. Yeah. So we hired lots of overqualified people and invested hundreds of thousands in training to watch them leave. And then we started realizing that, you got to bring on the right people. So we tried everything from cattle calls, bring in 30 people and who wants a job, you start Monday, to really selling people to try to, not dupe them, but sell them on what a great environment we had, to, trying to get people to sell us on why they should get a job. And it was really messy because we had misalignment for a handful of years, where a bunch of the team members just weren't quite the right fit. So there was a lot of turnover and a lot of challenge. And we had a policy back then, we wouldn't hire anyone with experience because we thought, we want to bring on nice people and teach them how to do it our way, rather than bringing on carpet cleaners and trying to teach them how to be nice people the way we need them to be nice.
I was gonna say, what is the, like, along the kind of the main chunk of the growth of the years, what was the average? Did you average like the 400 per radio? And so what was the typical volume? And then how were you, like, what did your hiring practice? Was it like you were interviewing 20 people a week? And like, what was the churn that was correlating to the growth and the numbers?
So 400, we only saw that 2 or 3 times where you got 400 jobs from one station. And at some point you're buying too much on a station. You don't want to be on every minute. If the show starts being about ZeroRez, you have a problem. What we would do was trying to buy the right radio and create the right relationships with the talent that's doing the ads, such that they're working you into the content of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because buying an ad is cute. Being talked about when they're talking about Mother's Day or going to Ireland and how the hotel room needed ZeroRez, like that you can't buy.
Right.
But it works you in and you become part of the vernacular. So, but you asked about results. On a big station, top tier station, Minneapolis is a great radio market. There's probably 4 or 5 top rated stations. Bringing in 200 jobs in a month would be massively successful. We changed the service offering. So we were selling $300 jobs instead of $400 or $450 jobs. We were just doing a lot more of them. And an ROI on a station would typically be on a successful station at maturity would be in the 3.5 to 1 range. So pretty cool when you can spend 20 grand and bring in $70,000-$80,000.
No shit. So
and that's new customer acquisition where you're still getting all the branding with all the people who aren't buying, and you're getting all the repeat customers to get excited about you and call you up without you having to do anything.
So then how many people were you hiring or interviewing on a weekly basis in order to fulfill all those jobs?
Well, so let me talk about revenue real quick. We bought the company, was doing about $300,000. We did 700 in 07 and then about 1.1, 1.2 in 08. 09, we did 2.5 million, then 5 million, then 8 million, then 11 million.
That's so awesome.
And then we started opening up out of state. And when I left, I left the business, sold it. We'll talk about that awesome experience in our next podcast. But
no sarcasm whatsoever, right?
No sarcasm. We were doing maybe 17 or 18 million last year across 5 locations. We had 6 at one point.
How many employees when you left?
Probably about 180, give or take. So we were hiring. It was a chicken and egg. Do you hire the person, then get the truck, or do you get the truck, then get the person? And the answer is yes. You do both as quick as you can. So they were building these trucks as one-offs because they had the equipment, but no one had ever pre-ordered, and we were just one client. And all of a sudden, other franchises started saying, "Well, I want this truck too." And so there's 6 or 8 franchises that most businesses in our franchise system were not thriving. At that time, they hadn't adopted the Minneapolis/Atlanta model that we were using for buying radio, and they were charging too much, and all sorts of problems that we had not fixed, but come to resolution with. And so as people started adopting the media model and the service and pricing model, they started buying the trucks too. So all of a sudden, there's this backlog of they're making them one at a time out in a suburb of Seattle. And we're like, well, we need 8 of them. And they're like, well, we don't have 8 vans. We don't have parts for 8. So we start pre-ordering, hoping that, we're going to actually want to buy them. And then hiring, hoping that the truck
will be ready,
will actually be needed to align with demand that we can't really predict, but we hope continues. So it was a real shell game for a minute there. But so if we bought a truck and we're running it 7 days a week, we can maybe get, we're asking people to work 5 days, sometimes 6 days a week. But, best case, we're getting maybe 20 days, 22 days out of them in a month. So we're hiring 1.5 people per truck. And we're trying to work backward on, okay, if we're doing 4 jobs and it's going to work 30 days,
That's
so
awesome.
And you can imagine any business. I mean, if you run a hot dog cart or a janitorial company, the systems you run when you're doing 300,000 and then 700,000, then 2 million, then 5 and 8, they're going to be irrelevant. You're going to outgrow your systems and outgrow your training procedures. And until you start to really evolve and say, I'm going to document my systems, and I'm going to say, this is the way ZeroRez does it, rather than this is the way Michael does it, or Sean does it, or Jimmy does it, you really don't have a chance at getting consistency and scalability.
So what were some of the things that you did to accomplish that you thought that worked out? Was it whether it was a system or a dispatching thing, or like certain, kind of epiphanies that you guys ended up going through that ended up being successful with the model?
Well, it was just a series of predictable accidents and problems and fires that we fought that helped us realize this ain't working, because we keep running into similar crap that holds us back. And in hindsight, we probably should have predicted it would happen. So, everything from how we distributed the schedule to how we thought about capacity, all of those things needed to, we started to realize, because we got burned by that which should have been obvious, that we needed to give visibility and planning make those a priority in the business. So we started to invest in software. We started to invest in people to, rather than having the phone team who's great at answering calls and giving great customer service, instead of having them just place jobs on the schedule, we'd have them place jobs on the schedule, and we started to hire someone to manage the schedule. Because if you have someone driving 45 minutes from job to job, they can't excel and do the same number of jobs or with the same job satisfaction as the person who's got a succinct, planned out route. Mm-hmm. So we started to invest first in people to fill roles, and then in people to develop systems to make those roles more efficient.
Was there anything, as you were doing the hiring and stuff like that, like what worked and didn't work? I mean, it sounds like you kind of went through a couple of different hiring practices and stuff like that, but like, or was it, like you said, just random luck finding the right people, the right positions and stuff? I mean, like I was going, what I said earlier is like, I mean, the sheer quantity of people you had to hire had to just been like exhausting.
Oh, it was really painful. In the early years, we didn't have problem finding people. We had problems finding the right people because we were not looking for the right people. Mm-hmm. When we started looking for the right people, it got easier, and our problems were less about attracting them, because 2012, 13, there were plenty of unemployment was still mm-hmm. decently high. Now it's like 2.5% in Minnesota.
0% for the people that want jobs.
Yeah. So it wasn't difficult attracting people, but we had to figure out the right people. Then we brought on the right people, and they would still fire us because we wouldn't onboard them. I look at onboarding as not, the one-day event. It's like a 2-month process of getting them to become part of your culture. Yep. And so we had a one-day orientation. We started to shift that mentality and work harder and harder to have the right culture and community, and make people feel like they were a part of the team, and that they were good at their job, that they knew how to do what they did with a level of excellence that gave them some self-worth. I mean, when you talk to people about why they have a job or what's important to them about the job, usually pay comes up. But with millennials especially, it's usually not in the top 3. I mean, what am I doing work that's valuable? Do they respect me? Do I have some flexibility with my time, pay, Do I work weekends, et cetera?
Nice people. I don't know that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we ignored that and said, let's just pay them well. And we didn't even pay that well. We got smarter and worked on culture and community and that sort of stuff, and tried to bring meaning to the work and feedback to the work. That helped a whole lot. But even today, turnover and retention are major issues for the company.
Mm-hmm. So as we're kind of wrapping up the first round of this, I'm curious is as you scale like that, and then because that was the kind of the foundation of our family business too, of how crazy we grew. Is were you because of how analytical you were around the return on investment of the spend and the vans and the people and all that stuff? Were you monitoring like your profits and how you're reinvesting that, and like what the normalization was? Because that'll kind of tee back into round two when we're talking about valuations and how you guys ended up splitting up everything. But like, what was the trajectory of the profits? I mean, did you self-fund a lot of this stuff, or did you lean on your bank a lot to continue hitting those hurdles?
So we realized, and this is going to sound crazy, we realized, and one of the big pivotal moments that we had when we started staffing up, we realized we were too profitable for a service company, because in probably 2009 and 2010, we made per employee more than was reasonable, because we didn't have any infrastructure. We, per truck is maybe an easier way to look at it, because with admin staff, I don't remember the exact numbers, but per truck, a healthy carpet cleaning company that's not a franchise, maybe they're making $15,000 per month per truck. We peaked at about 39,000 per month per truck. So that's working 7 days a week.
Yeah.
That's working, and that's not having a healthy dose of night work. That's all 90% residential, $300 carpet cleanings.
Yeah.
We worked pretty hard. And the problem was, we didn't have a support staff or a leadership team to make that work easy to execute. So it was really painful. And we just said, let's sacrifice some margin so that this thing can scale and hopefully not explode in our faces. Mm-hmm. Because, when we were doing 39,000 per month per truck, I was still, getting phone calls at 2 a.m. when people had, bad tacos and couldn't come in. Not that I should have been in some, ivory tower just working on the business,
but right.
But, crap, we're killing it. We're making great money. Our margins are awesome. Let's bring in some talent to make this a little easier to execute and fill in some of the gaps, because at that point there were myself and the real estate partner were the two owners, and neither of us were super awesome or super enthusiastic about being the people who made the trains run on time.
So when you were looking at all this, Michael, did you, and then we can kind of put a cliffhanger for the listeners, but were you monitoring, or like, because your dad was in M&A and you had, I don't know what the circle of influences that you had, which we can talk about in the next episode, but were you like tying this to business valuation at all? Were you always looking at profits? Because, when you look at and you probably realize a lot of this after the fact, but it's like with the infrastructure and how value is driven out of a company, did you have any kind of, foresight into that, or did that kind of come into play when you were looking at the buyouts?
So when I started, I told you I thought I'd have a 3-year horizon being active in the business. Fast forward 3 years, we're just on the cusp of massive growth, and we're starting to take off. We've got these bottlenecks. I started to realize, let's focus on seeing what this can be, because I didn't get into the carpet cleaning company thinking it could scale the way that I started to realize it could. So in having the realization about where the market was going, seeing the rest of the world kind of collapsing and us growing, I stopped thinking about, well, what am I going to do next? And started thinking about, where can this thing go? Mm-hmm. So being part of this massive growth thing, we didn't really focus on, my plan had been to focus on, all right, how do I make this business worth as much as I can? And the focus shifted to, how can we scale this thing and figure out how much market share it can take, so that down the road we can have the conversation about how much is this thing worth. And that there's a big mistake that we made. Had I been focused on how do we make this thing as valuable today as we can, I probably would have spent a lot of time looking at a subscription model, reoccurring revenue models, et cetera. What we did instead was, how do we figure out how to scale this thing up so we can bring in as many customers and make them as happy as possible, and let the natural tendencies in the market have them repeating on whatever scale they're on. So today, as the business exists, it has, without doing anything, probably 1,500 or 2,000 people call to give $300 to the company, plus all the marketing efforts, bringing all the stuff. So they're doing great, and that's just the Minnesota location. But there isn't a reoccurring revenue model where we know that every month we're getting a check from each of the people in the database. So it's largely inefficient because we didn't have that focus. It's still doing great, but could be
slightly different.
The model could be a lot sexier.
So as we're wrapping up here, and we'll talk more about that in the next episode, is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with for this episode, as far as, as it relates to growing and scaling, and some of the, your big takeaway that you had, or maybe just kind of highlight something you've already said?
I think the big thing that kind of blows people's hair back is when I talk about acquisition cost of a customer, and encourage people to stop trying to be as efficient as possible and try to figure out what is the most you can stomach pain without losing money, and run toward that. And try to, obviously try to be more efficient than that. But if you know that your COGS are 40%, shoot for a 2-to-1 ROI. And when you have a 4-to-1 ROI, great. Try to figure out, what if I spend more and the ROI comes down, but the net revenue and the net income go up. So if you're in a business where you have a reasonable expectation that you can re-engage that customer and get them to buy again, because if you do that, then once they're part of your ecosystem, it's a lot easier to retain them, and it's kind of hard to screw up until you really screw up. So our job was to run and try and figure out, how do we get as many customers as possible? And today they've got 200,000+ carpet cleaning customers.
It's interesting, Michael, the stat that John Warlow has. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He wrote a book called Built to Sell, and he said, like, what the studies have shown is that if someone gives you their credit card, it's like I don't even know what the hell it was. It was like 3 or 10 times the chance that they're going to just buy from you again, because they've already made the mental commitment and have done it. And so yeah, I mean, it's the repeat customers. It's just the mental fatigue is not there of them having to decide whether they want that vendor or not, if you did most of the things right, like you said.
Yeah, I think moving forward in businesses I'm engaged with, I'm actively looking for, how do I put in as soon as possible a subscription type model. But in terms of cliffhangers for your next show, that's morsels that they already heard, but cliffhangers, lawsuits, maybe not as sexy as some of the lawsuits and not with the parties you would have expected, but there are lawsuits in the story. There's a breakup, there's lawyers, there's burning the house down, and sold the business, and I'm yet still in business with my former partner. So there's irony.
Cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So figure that one out, right?
It's a hot mess, but it all kind of makes sense. But I did a lot of soul searching, and I feel like I'm in a really good place. Got some money and some runway. Got a lot of love lost because my firstborn child, this company, is not mine anymore.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And but if people want to do some digging and want to reach out to you between now and the next episode, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
There are 2 ways, and can I tell your listeners what I do? What my job is now?
Yeah.
My world, I am in private equity, and I've got a couple of verticals that are fun. One is investing in turnarounds where companies are broken or dysfunctional. They need capital for growth. They need leadership. They need strategy. So I've got that investment arm. but I'm also working with companies that are stuck. So companies that kind of need to be put into the incubator so that they can grow the right way. Think of the technician who can't get off the truck, or the team that can't work on the business because they're stuck working in the business. We provide capital and buy a minority stake in those businesses. And my partner and I are on the board of directors. We're not running your business, but we're your unpaid consultants. Most consultants you give money to, and they give you ideas and you try to run with them. We give you money, we help you with the ideas, and we help you with the implementation. So it's a whole lot of fun, and people can kind of request more information about it at redhookinvestments.com, redhookinvestments.com. And you can reach out to me at michaelc6@gmail.com. Happy to talk to people about what they got going on.
Awesome. And we will be diving more into the next episode, and also on what you're doing too. We might be able to have time on the next episode to dive more into your service private equity model, which I think is absolutely genius. So with that being said, I appreciate you coming on the show and looking forward to next week.
Thanks so much.